Hello, everyone.
Hi, Olga. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much for allowing us to talk. And today we will be opening up the symposium, I guess, with talking about blockchain initiatives, blockchain technology work group, and what we've done last year, what we're planning to do this year. Blockchain now becomes going slowly into the mainstream, and it becomes a talk of the street. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy about the initiatives which are happening right now with Chia and some of the industry members of SNIA. And frankly, I'm honestly excited. And as a group, what we've done in the last year, we published a 0.1 technology work group draft specification. The concept was based on the universal ID, and that's not a brand new concept. It's a concept which is now becoming more and more popular in protocol labs and Filecoin, if you know that, and IPFS, which is Web 3.0. So there is nothing new, and the idea of the group is to build a specification for the interoperability blockchains focused on the data storage. We invited a number of the guest speakers from Chia, Skylab, Signum. This is the most popular today in the blockchain community who are doing the work focused on the storage and data-centric storage blockchains. We ran during SNIA Developers Conference last year in September, Birth of Fevers, and it was very well received. So thank you very much for your support. And at the moment, we're also, besides the specification work, we're working on 2 white papers. It's a blockchain concepts and an introduction of the SNIA IP with the universal ID to create an interoperability protocol. And like members of our group and Rafael mentioned, I have to say that we currently are focusing on a backend more than a front end. Front end should be application specific, and we don't want to intercept or influence the solutions developed today and in the future. But the backend is where SNIA technology work group of blockchain can create a value add. I would say tremendous value add. Work items for 2022. We will start building more and more of the white papers focused on the storage blockchains, continuous work on SNIA blockchain specifications for interoperability, in taking into the account what's happening with 3.0, IPFS, and other foundations. Collaborate closer with SODA Foundation, build other collaborations as well, and establish active GitHub repository. Next slide. Currently, we have in the membership, this is the members. I didn't add the AMD, so we have, as you can see, the worldwide representation. We have Asia, we have Europe, we have North America and Canada, and Signum would be Brazil. Next. So what is blockchain participation itself expected? Blockchain industry has a data storage initiatives, and that's fast-growing segment of SNIA. We will work for the interoperability, like I mentioned previously, focusing with the collaboration with the Chainlink and Polkadot or Filecoin. You can call it Polkadot, you can call it Filecoin, you can call it IPFS. It's still the same segment of companies. The industry which we will be relevant to in terms of the specification and standardization would be software vendors, application developers, open source community, absolutely, ICP providers for the backend, and banking and financial sector. And I wouldn't say that it's in the long run anymore. Probably it's getting shorter and shorter in terms of the runway. And we would like to invite the companies and groups who are currently parts of SNIA to join the initiatives. I know that some are already working with some of the blockchain companies. Some are looking into adoption of the Web 3.0 protocols. So that would be a good time to help and in terms of future development of the interoperability specification between blockchains. It might be not so, it will be very, very, very important in the nearest future. And when it comes to the what we're looking for, we need to strengthen the architecture of a specification, create an IP and drivers for the front and back end in order to do support, and establish communication and a closer collaboration with the potential customers of the SNIA work. And that would be the companies in the banking sector and other sectors as well.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, Olga. The emails for Olga and her co-chair are on the presentation. Will be available. Please contact them directly if you have questions, and to get involved with the Twig. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Michael.
On to cloud storage. David or Mark?
Yeah, David, you're on.
I am. I'm here as well.
So I'll kick off and then I'll hand it over to you. The cloud storage Twig was created for the purpose of developing SNIA architecture related to system implementations of cloud storage technologies. We've identified, developed, and coordinated system standards for cloud storage. We've produced specifications and driven consistency of interface standards messages. And we documented system-level requirements and shares these with other standards organizations. So recently, we've submitted CDMI to ISO. It's no longer under ballot. It passed the ballot just recently, so we know the results of that. We've also worked on CDMI extensions, such as the extended child listing extension and the partial upload extension. These are deltas to the published spec that if they get implemented, we can roll them into newer versions of the spec. We also added a work item just this year for multi-cloud technical work, and we've given a multi-cloud Bright Talk in early January 2022. David?
Okay, so looking forward, some of our work items for this year are continuing to support the CDMI PAS submission process through to ISO. Now that we've gotten approval on ballot, it's just some minor administrative work, and then CDMI 2.0 will be an official ISO standard, so that's very exciting. We're also going to continue to review and document vendor-submitted CDMI extensions. So the way the CDMI, the Cloud Storage Technical Working Group works with respect to extensions to CDMI is vendors come forward with extensions they'd like to see, typically based on customer requirements. We write it up collectively as a working group, put forward the extension for review, and then once we have multiple implementations, it gets merged formally into the specification. So currently we have 3 extensions on the docket that we're working through. The first one is dealing with situations where you have data objects that not only contain data, but also contain children, and containers that not only have children, but also contain data. And that enhances interoperability with other systems out there that support those concepts. We've been doing some work on formalizing how you take a container within a CDMI namespace and express that you want that exported via an S3 interface. And we're also looking at formalizing how CDMI data would be represented using CBOR, the concise binary object representation, which is a more efficient way of dealing with a lot of the same use cases that one would use JSON for. In addition, we're looking at open API specification to help with adoption, to allow integration with many commonly used development tools for APIs. And we've been working on multi-cloud white papers. So our membership at this time, we have 28 companies actively participating in the technical working group. We have pretty much a who's who of storage companies working here. So it's been good. And if you're interested in this area, we welcome you to join and attend our meetings. Thank you. So, Mark, do you want to cover this one?
Sure. What is expected industry impact of this work? Well, certainly we've enabled interoperable cloud storage, and we've come up with a standardized cloud storage data interchange by serializing the objects in the cloud. And we've enabled standard cloud storage management, or management of your data once it's in the cloud. And the industry segment is anybody who's creating cloud storage systems, whether it's on premises or in the cloud or hybrid situations. And we go into much more detail on the aspect of multi-cloud in our white paper. So if you're a cloud storage developer, application developer, SRE, cloud data management stakeholders, you should join and participate in this Twig. And our email address to reach the co-chairs, David and myself, is cloudtwigchair@snia.org.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark. Great update. On to the computational storage Twig.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Jason Molgard, and I'm got Scott Shadley here with me, and we'll divide up the presentation to cover the material that we have today. So, on our accomplishments for 2021, kind of a number of updates that have been made to the architecture document, and we released a 0.8 for public review. It's out there now, so anybody's welcome to go grab a copy and take a look and provide us input. We also developed and introduced and released publicly a 0.5 of a API for computational storage, and so we're also welcoming feedback on that. And then we refined a lot of dictionary definitions based upon those architecture modifications that we had folded into the 0.8. In addition, we did quite a bit of work in driving content for the CS-SIG in CMSI, not the least of which being the first annual PMCS Summit with a lot of support from the member companies. And that went really well. And then in SDC, of course, we had continued growth from member companies and participation, so very pleased about that as well. We had continued work with the NVMe TP efforts around computational programs. And then a big focus area for us was security. And we joined forces with the SNIA Security Twig in order to help us develop the security terminology and technology for computational storage. We realized that we just don't have the security experts within the computational storage Twig, so we're really grateful for the SNIA Security Twig's help in trying to come up with that. And there's a link to our charter on the bottom of the slide if you would like to take another look at that. So on to what we're going to accomplish in 2022, or what our goals are anyway. So certainly the top two are driving to a 1.0 release of the architecture and programming model. So I mentioned we're at 0.8 now. The key piece that we want to get incorporated is security, and then at that point we would fold that in and release a 1.0. In addition, we want to get the 1.0 release of the API document available. And so currently there's some refinement that's going on based upon some member company code development, and then of course we want to make sure that security is reflected in that document as well. So thinking about the CS-SIG work, we're going to continue supporting that. We've got a webinar series of content, blogs, and articles that we've planned. We've got the second annual PMCS Summit coming up, in addition to the SDCs. Other conferences that we are planning to be involved in: SOTACon, OCP, SC22, and of course we're open to other things as they come along. From a SNIA group collaboration perspective, we've got a couple of different things that we're pursuing. One of the first ones we're going to kick off here at the beginning of the year is a cross-pollination and potential collaboration with the SDXI Twig. We're going to give each other some presentations and hopefully try to see how we can work together. And then, of course, we've got the continued collaboration with the Security Twig on security for computational storage. So just can't thank the Security Twig enough for their support and their efforts related to helping us with security of computational storage. External interactions, of course, NVM Express around the TP work on computational programs. We're going to continue being involved in monitoring that as appropriate. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is the logo chart. I love our NASCAR slide here. We're up to 52 unique organizations that are participating. We have roughly 261 people on our mailing list. We have an active participation every week of about 20 to 30 people, given the certain topics. As Jason mentioned, we spent a significant amount of work recently on specific topics, so we have ebbs and flows of attendance, but you can see we have a great cross-pollination of not just vendors and or enablers or OEMs, but also potentially end customers or implementers of the technology. So it's a great opportunity for us. Part of the shift from not getting to 1.0 this year in 2021, but now pushing to 22 was the fact that some of the new members joining actually brought some perspectives we hadn't taken into account. So the more participation we get, the better the content becomes as we are able to publish that out beyond just the organization today. So very excited about some of the new members this last year as well. As far as what this means to you and the impact, we all know that when it comes to why we're here for SNIA, the standards that we work and develop and design help drive integration of our products and technology more effectively, because we have the ability to set a baseline for those architectures to work off of, and it gets rid of the one and done type of thing, but more collaborative environment. From an industry segment relevance, again, we know that the storage architectures are continuing to morph and change in the society we're in today. We're adding all kinds of compute layers at various different places, and this, of course, makes perfectly logical sense when you're getting into high-density devices to have the compute at the storage device. So we're looking forward to how we see this continue to implement those evolutionary and even revolutionary changes to the storage architecture. As far as why you should join and participate, perfect example of that discussion is the simple fact that you can help drive this effort. We have made significant changes in the specification from 0.2, 0.5 to 0.8 based on the feedback of new members and potential consumers of the technology. So it's very important that we make sure that we do it right, and your participation in that certainly helps move that forward. And as you can see here, we do have a reflector email address for Jason and myself. If you participate in the calls, you know how to find us. If you don't, we can always, we did test it this morning. It does come to both of our inboxes. So feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to share further information with you.
Thank you for the update, Scott and Jason. On to the green storage twig. Don and Herb.
Hello, everybody. This is Herb Tanzer, and co-chair Don Goddard's also online. The Green Storage Twig has been active since about 2007, and we're still going strong. Here's some of our accomplishments for 2021. First of all, there's a link to our charter. And essentially, we're concerned about power efficiency metrics and workload benchmark tools for storage networking solutions and storage devices. So our summary for the work last year, as far as interaction with SNIA Japan, there is some idle data evaluation and analysis going on, as well as working with the Japan Top Runner for their regulatory program requirements. We've supported the 2020 EPA data center storage unit shipment reports emissions, and we are continuing with that in 2021 for the 2021 report submissions. We've have ongoing efforts as far as getting the green terms into the SNIA dictionary. We've been collaborating with the Green Grid on EU Lot 9 regulatory updates on power efficiencies, and there is ongoing industry support for the version 4 Emerald measurement spec, which is our latest spec as far as test tools and kits. And then EPA Energy Star version 2.0 became effective in the spring of last year, and that does reference the Emerald spec 4.0. It includes filers in addition to block. And we've engaged with the EPA to develop their latest spec, version 2.1 Energy Star spec, and that added verification testing that was released last week. We are updating the white paper number 77. That's with the Green Grid on energy efficient data center storage, and also added a new work item. We're calling it storage device level power efficiency measurement. What we've done there is initiate an investigation and device level testing. Okay. Next, please. This is our roadmap of what we hope to accomplish in 2022. This year, I'll just go straight to the top 3 items, which are items 7, 8, and 9. The Emerald measurement spec, its current is version 4, and we'd like to start on the next version. It'll either be version 4.0 plus or 5.0 based on the extent of the changes we make. We'll define the scope sometime in the middle of the year and then work on trying to get it released maybe in 2023. And then, as I mentioned, we initiated work on the storage device level power efficiency measurement work item. And what we're doing there is some ongoing data collection. There will be a direction survey sent out, and I think it already has been, as far as the future direction on this, whether we continue it within the green twig or perhaps the solid state storage twig. There will be a white paper published as far as the work done to date. And then a really big item is item number 9. We're calling it software tool cadence for Emerald. Essentially, the VD bench and the Spec 2014 workload generators are old and retired and it needs some replacement and not being supported anymore. So we need to find, some updated tools for both filers and block. Okay. We have 19 members in the green storage twig, and weekly calls. There's typically about a dozen to 15 members calling in, so that's some very good participation. Next, please. As far as participation in the green storage twig, as far as the industry impact, our goal has always been to come up with one unbiased test methodology for regulatory bodies worldwide. And then, we provide industry-wide knowledge of the storage system power consumption and best practices to optimize power usage without compromising any system functionality. As far as the relevance, storage is certainly important to storage system manufacturers, storage device manufacturers, and data center integrated management software vendors. Why should you join and participate? Well, you can participate in developing standards used worldwide for data center data storage power efficiency and help influence regulations worldwide related to that. We certainly were working on white papers. Is that something that you can participate in as far as refreshing and renewing that? And with that, we can create some competitive advantage in product sustainability. And then hopefully, if you do join, you can avoid being surprised when some new regulation goes live and affects your product portfolio or your revenues.
Okay, thanks. Garib, great update and fantastic work for the storage twig. Update from IATA. Tom?
Thank you. I am Tom West, who, along with Jeff Kenning, serve as co-chairs of the Audit Twig. Next slide, please. In terms of current activity, the IO traces tools and analysis TWG is primarily focused upon storage-related IO trace files. More specifically, the Twig provides a website repository for those who have collected IO traces, which they can then contribute to our repository. The IO trace types available from the repository include block IO. That's typically read and write operations to a storage device. System call, for example, application read file and write file operations. Key value stores, these traces reflect activity directed to key value stores. Two recently added additions to the repository are the memcache traces from Twitter's in-memory caching clusters and traces from the IBM Cloud Object Storage Service on the IBM Cloud. And there's also static snapshots, which are traces taken statically of a file system rather than of system calls. The IATA repository website is easily accessible at the URL shown. There is a link to it from the main SNIA website under the Standards tab. Additional information about the TWG can be found at the FAQ URL shown. There you'll find FAQs about the IATA repository, the IATA Twig, about downloading trace files, about contributing trace files, how to help, and more. Regarding recent work, the new repository BibTeX feature provides the ability to download a pre-formatted BibTeX entry for any trace or set of traces. The entry correctly credits the original trace collectors, as well as the repository website. It also includes a URL linking directly to the respective trace file. This is a pretty handy tool, especially given the many citations of the repository and its trace files. Some recent work has also been done on updating the IO trace common semantics document, which deals with determining the semantics of the various fields within the trace record. And there's also continuing efforts on improving the repository website, for example, ease of use, performance, and so on. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we continue to work on maintaining and improving the repository website. This includes posting new trace files, which can entail repackaging trace files where a very large trace file is broken up into a set of smaller files for download. We also provide options to download a README file, as well as a sample for many of the trace files. And of course, we're always looking to add more traces to the repository. Please let us know of any trace files that you can contribute or even know about. And if the files can't be contributed, we'd still like to reference them if possible from the repository website. Beyond trace files, the TFG has also initiated efforts directed towards tools related to IO tracing, in particular, a SNIA IATA GitHub project, which provides a repository for SNIA open source software, more specifically software tools. The GitHub repositories for IATA are open to contributions from, of course, IATA Twig members, but also from non-SNIA members in accordance with the SNIA Contributor License Agreement. Regarding other groups within SNIA, we continue to follow current activities within the CMSI. For example, the development work such as the performance test specification being done within the solid state storage TWG is of interest, of course. Next slide, please. The current IATA Twig roster stands at 59 members. Our members come from a broad set of companies as shown. Educational institutions are also active participants of the Twig. Our co-chair, Jeff Kenning, is a professor at HMC. HMC hosts one of the web servers used by the IATA repository. Another mirror website is hosted at Stony Brook University in New York. And we have a third mirror website located in South Korea through the support of UNIST. Overall, a download from the IATA repository website can be serviced by any of these three sites. Regarding storage, NetApp has furnished some of the storage used for the trace files. Next slide, please. And quickly wrapping up, getting us on time. Then in regards to the IATA Twig participation, the IATA repository provides a broad community with a common facility for accessing storage-related IO trace files. Historically, IO trace files have been scattered and often hard to find. Moreover, many are outdated with little, if any, long-term support. The IATA repository provides, as Jeff likes to say, a one-stop shop, not only for older, quote, historical trace files, but also for recently collected IO trace files. The interest and actual use of the repository can be shown by over 575 citations within various research publications. You can go to the repository website and click on related resources, where you'll see a list of these citations. And shown for each of the citations are the author's names, paper title, journal name, and date. And while at the repository website, you can also click on the statistics link at the top of the web page to see recently trending traces that have been recently downloaded, which currently include dedupe traces, IBM object storage, Tencent block storage, and RockDB SSD. Of course, all of the repository content is available for free download and unrestricted use, not only by academic and industry researchers, but also by the public at large. Why participate in the IATA Twig? You can help us further improve the repository and help set directions regarding repository content with the results of your work visible on the web to the public at large. You can also, of course, monitor upcoming changes to the repository, for example, get a preview of traces to be added to the repository. If you have any questions or would like additional information, please contact Jeff or me at the TWG chair at SNIA.org. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tom, for the comprehensive update. Up next is LTFS Twig. I believe, Arnold, you are providing an update on behalf of the Twig, given the very early hours in Japan at this time.
Yes, I am. It is very early in Japan, and I told them I would take care of the presentation for them. So basically, tape is not dead. Tape storage technology continues to evolve, and what's impressive is the latest model can store up to 20 terabytes in a single palm-sized cartridge. So the LTFS format specification has been around for a while. It is an ISO standard, and it's been continued to be updated. And the Twig is got some new projects involved around the specification itself. The latest version 2.5.1, recently became an ISO standard last year and has been published by ISO. The two new work items they're working on, one's a compliance test specification. This is a specification designed actually to test and validate LTFS implementations of the information and the format they write onto a tape. And this way, the main goal is to improve interchangeability of different LTFS formatted tapes between different implementations. They also plan to do, everybody's familiar with an ISO image file. You know, everybody's seen those before. Well, the LTFS Twig is actually working on creating an LTFS tape image format specification so that they can actually create a LTFS, basically, file format for use on optical disk storage or on anything that you want to write an LTFS formatted file to. And this will be good for, you know, transferring files between different, in a common format between different systems. Twig membership is still pretty good as of, this is the membership as of today. You got your several of the drive manufacturers as well as companies that are involved in tape and tape storage. So what is the expected industry impact of the work? The massive increase of data requirement for long-term retention has not went away, and there's still a need for low-cost storage media. The movie industry, I know, has always been a big proponent and user of LTFS media. LTFS, the standard itself, actually won an Emmy, a technical Emmy years ago. And so the work is still important to various industries, especially for the long-term storage of information. Why should you participate in this Twig? You can actually help contribute to the new standards for creating the common data retention method on tape and electronic image format, especially this new file format they're creating for LTFS images. And you can make sure that it meets the standards of your product stuff if you want to be able to support it. And who to contact? Takashiya Ishimoto from IBM is the current chair, and you can reach out to him through his email address. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold, for that update on behalf of the LTFS Twig. Up next, the Object Drive Twig. Mark and Bill.
Yeah, next slide. So the accomplishments that we have are the native NVMe OF drive specification version 1.1 published in June. And the key value storage API version 1.1, which was published back in September of 2020. Next. The native NVMe OF drive specification points to the latest swordfish schema. We plan to add discovery and security TPs from NVMe since now they're all ratified, and add other related work like how does a drive find its own IP address, etc. We're continuing to coordinate with the SSM Twig work on Swordfish for NVMe. The latest version of that was 1.2.3 back in December. Next. These are some of the folks that have been participating in the Object Drive Twig. We have people that would obviously make Ethernet drives, for example, or implement the key value API. as well as consumers of those APIs and drives. Next. So what is the expected industry impact of this work? The API for key value implementations has allowed open source libraries for NVMe key value drives. So you can go pick up that library implementation. It works off the shelf with NVMe key value drive implementations. And we also have defined the connector pinout and management interface for drives implementing the NVMe OS standard to allow interoperable implementations. What is the industry segment relevance? The standards that are being driven by the Object Drive Twig are important to any developers with native NVMe OF or NVMe KV drives and the host software that manages or communicates with those drives. Why should you join? Please consider joining this Twig to continue defining infrastructure for connecting NVMe OF drives and any possible key value API updates. You can reach us at the emails that are on the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Up next, the Scalable Storage Management Twig, Rochelle.
Thank you, Michael. The SSM Twig, it works on, produces the swordfish specification. We have, let's start just kind of for reference at the bottom of the slide. We've produced kind of 3 subversions. We started with the service-based implementation. Built on top of that, the block storage-based implementation. And the last bit of time, we've fundamentally been working on adding NVMe support. Our latest couple of sub-releases of that have really been working on extending that NVMe functionality. As Mark just talked about, the Object Drive Twig has been focusing on a sub-portion of that, which is the drive portion of that and the Ethernet drives. Other pieces of that include other NVMe and NVMe OF capabilities. We've really been spending a lot of time over the last year and a half looking at how can we make this really usable. That includes a lot of functionality, profiles, documentation. So the profiles really clarify exactly what features and functionality implementations we just need to support. And that it covers drives, that covers the NVMe front end for an array, for example. Those have all been released along with supporting the profile and additional documentation to support that. We've also released a full suite of additional materials, including property guides, a simple way for a client or a user to go just reference what each property in the entire ecosystem means. And then the model overview and mapping guide includes all the details on how to map redfish and swordfish for NVMe to the NVM Express specifications. So to help support all of this work, we have been also working on multi-alliance projects with the DMTF, the Open Fabrics Alliance with Gen Z, and as well as obviously the ones we've been doing with NVM Express to work on additional expansion and use of the specifications. So with NVM Express, it's all about the focus of how do we have those specifications together. The work with OFA and Gen Z include expanding that to a broader ecosystem around storage fabric management for block in general, for storage fabric management, for NVMe OF, and just a very broad ecosystem. To support that, we've also been doing a lot of open source tools, including things like our Swordfish emulator that helps drive or enable implementations, driving things like you could just download and have the emulator serve as an NVMe drive out of the box. And it also is supporting the joint work with the OFA. They're using that as the basis for the POC as well as reference implementations for their Open Fabrics management framework. And it's serving as an enabling tool for prototyping, managing fabrics, and managing storage fabrics. A lot of work that we're leveraging all over the place. So what are we doing this next year? We're continuing the work on those profiles, adding support for more advanced configurations for EBOFs, for JBOFs, for NVMe over fabrics, virtualization support, supporting the NVMe TPAR 6011, and extending a lot more into those storage fabrics. We're looking at adding CXL enablement through our partnerships with OFA. We're also going to be doing some expanded work with OCP. Then we'll also be looking at just supporting general enhancements to support implementation feedback, and also feedback for the profiles and for functionality based on feedback from work from the Swordfish Conformance Task Program. Next slide. And just like Scott was talking earlier about the slide with all the logos showing everyone who's participating, this little box in the bottom, just kind of highlighting a bunch of the folks that have joined. Swordfish has been going for several years now, but we're still seeing a lot of growth. These are a lot of folks, some of the folks that have been joining based on just the interest and growth around some of those new areas we've been talking about, adding in and accelerating that work, both in the object drives that Mark was talking about, as well as the NVMe OF and that work. And what are we working on? Who's engaging? Well, we just showed you all of those folks that are engaging. We have really great attendance, particularly in our NVMe task force space, and a lot of interest there. A lot of different types of folks engaging, including folks on the client side. We'd love to have more folks contributing. I talked to a new company just yesterday that will be starting to engage. And willing to provide feedback. They're working with Swordfish outside SNIA and are going to be coming in to engage new. We'd love to, have more folks continuing to engage like that as well. Contributing content, finding holes, helping to add support for new functionality, accelerating your implementations. And we'll talk more also when we talk about SMI. For some additional opportunities there as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the update, Rochelle. And to find out even more, please attend SMI's updates tomorrow, either in the morning or in the evening. Please consult the schedule on the website respectively. Up next, the security twig. Eric?
Thank you. Go ahead, next slide. Thank you. So for the Security Technical Work Group, which has been a mainstay within SNIA for quite some time, our work is basically broken down into some general categories. So we have general storage security. We deal with SNIA architectures and specifications. Typically, there's a security element that needs to be addressed in those. So a lot of cross-organizational work. Securing storage ecosystems, dealing with information retention, preservation, and discovery are also topics of interest to us. And if you're interested in some of the past white papers, there's a link here that you can go to. So in 2021, we continue to make modifications to the SNIA TLS specification for storage systems. As you'll see, we intend to basically make some additional changes in the coming year. Heavy involvement over the last 6 months in the computational storage space, specifically looking at security considerations for the architecture document and ultimately the API. And we also tend to engage in the standards arena, and two particular activities consumed a fair amount of resources this year. The second edition of 27040, which is the ISO standard for storage security, And there's a draft standard 2883, which is dealing with standardization, and most of it's focused on media standardization. And of course, we do keep an eye on data security and legal terms in the SNIA dictionary. All right, major work items for 2022. We intend to actually do an update on not only the TLS spec, but there's an ISO companion document 2648, which will need to be updated. 27040 is continuing its revision cycle. It's a 3-year process. We're about mid-cycle. And we're in sort of the final phase of comments and whatnot on the IEEE 2883 document. We have several white papers that were developed a few years ago in preparation for revision to 27040. We anticipate updating most or all of those during this upcoming cycle because now 27040 is at a point where we'll be able to make some commentary on what's going on. And one of the key things is it's gone from a guidance standard to including actual requirements, shall statements. Obviously, we're dealing with storage concepts as they relate to security, and we intend to actually produce some new collateral in that arena. And our friends at NIST fairly routinely come out with new specifications. They have a whole plethora of drafts that require some sort of attention, and that's one of the things that we keep an eye on behalf of SNIA. In terms of collaboration, we deal with security and privacy across SNIA and engage wherever the need is. In some cases, may not be known. We inject that. We have good collaboration with some of the Insights committees, Insights CS1, as well as the IEEE Cybersecurity and Privacy Standards Committee, and as well as several informal. Next slide, please. In terms of membership, you can see here, we have about 27 organizations that are engaging. We have another 7 individuals, about 95 experts from the various organizations are involved. Meetings typically involve 10 to 12 people on a weekly basis. Next slide, please. Again, our focus is education, best practices, and formal standards. So that's a pretty broad slate of activities. We're dealing with consumers and users of storage technology, as well as the vendors and developers. And those two communities have different needs, and we try to deal with both those. Our sort of mantra is monitor, contribute, coordinate, and educate. So if you're interested in those things, come join us. Our weekly calls are Tuesday afternoons, 1 o'clock Pacific for an hour. In terms of active participation, it's typically 1 to 2 hours, so you can assume the meeting. But we do like to hand out assignments wherever we can. You can reach the chairs at security twg@snia.org.
Thank you, Eric, for the security Twig update and all the cross Twig work that yourself and the members of the Twig do as well. Appreciate it. Up next, the SFF Technology Associate Twig. Alex, take it away.
Great, thank you. So SFF is a rather large group. We have over 75 member companies, and we actively manage over 170 different documents. That includes active specifications, information documents, and reference guides. They are all available on our public website, which is linked in the slides. And as you can see, we cover a wide range of topics. This is just kind of the more general ones. We tend to be the home for specs that don't really have anywhere else to go. So we cover a very wide range in our documentation there. Our goal is to enable technology vendors to procure compatible multi-source products and solutions. And I would encourage anyone that is at all interested in anything we cover to become a member of SFF, but we'll have some more info on that in a bit. Just one note on the previous slide, you can see our structure here. So we've got 2 subgroups under the main Twig. And just a note, my co-chair, Michael Kaufman, is retiring in March. So we're very sorry to see him go. But as of last week, Paul Coddington from Amphenol will be stepping in both as the Twig co-chair and the connector subgroup co-chair. Next slide. So like I said, really big membership. So this is a snapshot of our most recent membership list here. Next slide, please. So some of our 2021 accomplishments, a really big one that we worked on quite a bit was our keyword project. So like I said previously, all of our specs and documents are available on our public website. But until we completed this project, you weren't always able to find what you were looking for. So for example, one of our documents, SFF 8614, it defines the mini SAS HD connector, but the title of that document doesn't actually say mini SAS HD anywhere. So we were able to tie keywords in with certain specs, and now when you search on the public site, if you type in mini SAS HD, you'll see 8614 as well as any other documents that are tied to that keyword. Other completed projects, we've got a couple others listed there. Like I mentioned, we do have a very wide range and a large number of projects, so we tend to have several things going on all at once. If you go to the next slide, we have some current work items. These are in various stages of completion. So our SFFTA 1002 documents, this defines a new connector variant. So the 1002 document defines a vertical, right angle, and straddle mount connector, for example, available in all those different sizes that are listed. But then we have some additional documentation that describe the cables that plug into those connectors, as well as the SI test boards, and then pinout information. Anything marked with an asterisk here is currently reopened and is undergoing some additional updates. Similarly, for EDSFF, we have quite a few documents that define the different components and form factors associated with EDSFF. And as you can see, some of those have recently been reopened to make some additional changes. New projects that we've kicked off, making some updates to some older connectors. So SFP Plus is one of them, as well as next generation connectors. So that's your SFP2 and QSFP2. You should expect to see those in the next couple months here, as well as a cabled QSFP caging connector setup that we're working on. Additional projects that we're still ongoing, I'd consider these more to be maintenance items. So for example, 8024 gets opened up quite a bit as other groups and standards tell us that they need additional reference codes added. I would say 8024 is actually pretty much open on repeat. But some other updates, like I said, mainly just maintenance, trying to update things to enable higher data rates, for example, on the mini SAS HD, as well as defining some new interconnects that the industry needs. Next slide. So lastly, I will give our shameless plug to become a member of SFF today. You get direct participation in the development of all of our documentation. You have the ability to open new projects, as well as access to all presentations, drafts, and supplemental material. So on our public site, we only publish the published versions and occasionally a draft if we are looking for additional feedback. But by being a member, you get all the behind the scenes info. And we do have one of the lowest membership fees around. So to be a member of SFF, it's only $1,500 a year. And I think that's a pretty good deal for a group that covers such a wide range of topics. And then if you're interested, there are some additional resources for you to peruse. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the update, Alex. Appreciate it. Now for one of the newer groups in SNIA, the Smart Data Accelerator Interface Twig update. Shyam?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Shyam Iyer, the chair for the SDXI Twig, which stands for Smart Data Accelerator Interface. So we have a chapter, and you can browse the link there. Basically, we're trying to standardize a memory-to-memory data mover interface and accelerator that's independent of the underlying data mover implementation or the interconnect that it needs to use. And so we're a fairly recent group. We formed in 2020. We did a bunch of activities in 2020 as well. 2021 has proven to be busier. So we did present to the Persistent Memory and Computational Storage Summit in April. There's a YouTube link to it that you can look at it as well. In May, we actually registered a class code specific for the SDXI interface with PCI SIG. So which means that in future implementations of software, a class driver can register itself with an SDXI device. So that's a significant achievement for the group. In the June timeframe, we kind of updated our charter to include the BSD3 clause license agreement for software development, so which sets us up for doing software development activities inside the group. We have increased our meeting frequency. We are twice a week with about rough attendance about 10 to 12 members in each meeting. That shows the participation that we're getting now. And we have a GitHub repository that we have created to house some of our documents. In all our spec documents are tracked in GitHub, and all our work items are tracked through GitHub issues. So that's the new thing from a process point of view that we did in 21, which is helping us progress faster. A significant achievement for the group has been that we released our first public review specification, the SDXI version 0.9 Rev 1 for review. It's out there for review. And we are also getting feedback from non-members through the SNIA contributor license agreement, which is fantastic. Some things that we did additionally were in the storage developer conference, we did a breakout session where we had a panel with different companies talk about why they want to support the SDXI Twig. And so we furthered that discussion with the Birds of the Feather session in the SCC conference. Some of these videos are available online for you to see as well. The membership has grown quite a bit. The last time we did this in 21, we were 80 members. Now we are 27 members, so it's about a 50% increase. And about 78 individual members are part of the Twig right now. And in terms of the work items that we will do this year, we are going to release a version 1.0 of the specification. We're creating the groundwork for building compliant software implementations and driver models. And some of that is taking the shape of a SNIA SDXI reference code. We will be trying to educate and encourage adoption with OS, hypervisor vendors, OEMs, applications, and data acceleration vendors by presentations, white papers, videos, and etc. While we are doing this due review for releasing our 1.0 specification, we're also planning for post 1.0 activities. Which includes like new data mover operations and operations that involve persistent memory targets, sort of building some cache currency models that involve these kind of data movers. We're thinking about security features that we would need for these data movers and a management architecture to wrap around these kind of data movers. Additionally, some topics that have been considered and are actively under discussion for post 1.0 are like RAS features that we need to have, some kind of quality of services that we need to have around these kind of data movers. How can we improve further latency? And we've been doing some CXL related discussions on how this fits into the CXL framework. And overall, how does heterogeneous environments play with a standardized data mover? These are some of the topics that we've been discussing. As far as collaborating with other groups this goes, we're trying to work with the computational storage Twig to form joint work streams that we can use to sort of build some work pipelines with each other. I think the other thing that we are looking to do externally is similar to feature involvement. We are going to have a CXL involvement where we would look at what features that we are adding may have an impact with the CXL specs as well. So in terms of the membership, this is virtually a who's who of the industry with OS vendors, CPU vendors, accelerator vendors, drive vendors, OEMs, and even cloud vendors. So we expect the membership to grow even further as we go down this journey. And what is the expected impact of this work? So I think what we're trying to do is standardize the memory-to-memory data movement across multiple address spaces securely with the SDXI function implementations. And we are also trying to standardize in-memory data transforms with these accelerators. And the context of this is, so far, software-based memory copy has been our data movement standard. And it takes away from the performance from the CPU, and offload DMA engines have not been standard; they have been vendor specific. So the Twig is trying to standardize this for the benefit of the industry, and the segment that is of relevance to us is OEMs, the OS vendors, the ISV vendors, and hardware acceleration vendors. And so why should you participate in this Twig is one, definitely you can monitor or contribute or vote on it, but you are getting a piece of history, the computer architecture. This is the first industry standard memory-to-memory data mover that you can come and contribute to. So if you're interested in this, please connect with us on SDXI Twig Chair at SNIA.org and learn more how you can work with us.
Excellent, thank you. Next up is an update from the S3 Twig.
Hello, this is Chuck Perden.
Thank you, Chuck.
I'm filling in for Eden today. Eden had a conflict, so let me dig right in here. One of the major accomplishments that we had this year was a technical white paper on the persistent memory performance test spec. This test specification involved a great deal of new terms and technologies. We decided as a group that there would be the need for a white paper to accommodate this because of all the newness, if you will, of the concepts and terms. In addition, there was a white paper that was written to explore the various aspects of the interconnect on NVMe over fiber. This was done with Intel and a few others here. And the idea there was to perform a performance analysis with different transporters. Okay, and last but not least, we have in development an effort to do a device level power efficiency measurement specification. You heard Herb talk earlier about the work that's gone on the green Twig. This is a very close alliance between us in the S3 Twig and the green Twig, in that essentially what we're doing is exploring the device level efficiency. And the idea behind this is, if we understand as storage product vendors and so forth, what the underlying power characteristics of the devices are, which dominates the device count in these products, we'll come up with much better choices in our device supply chain. And again, we worked again, I mentioned on the performance test specification and the white paper to accommodate that. We talked about the device level efficiency spec and the NVMe, and the other items that we're working on is storage form, and the CMSI. And last but not least, pretty important here, is the development of real workload IO captures. We have all sorts of synthetic workloads that we use for performance testing and so forth, but we find out that those are not really representative of anything in the real world. So there was an effort launched to capture real workloads and have analysis and build this actually into the performance test specifications. Next slide, please. Here are our member companies. There's 26, and the individuals associated with some of those companies. So the Twig participation, again, we talked about the performance test specification, standardized performance test for block and byte addressable persistent memory, storage device level, power efficiency. We talked about that. The industry relevance. So these power measurements and so forth, not just with the S3 Twig, but also with SNIA Emerald, are the underpinning of what the EPA uses as a measurement of their data center power efficiency for Energy Star program. So we're very tightly coupled in with them, and especially, as I mentioned, at the device level. Who should join this and participate in this? Well, anyone who would be interested in participating in the development of a performance test specification and a power test. And for further information, there is the chair's Eden Kim, his email. So thank you.
Thank you. And now for the newest Twig and SNIA, an update on the zone storage Twig. Dave and Bill, take it away.
So thank you for joining today. As Michael mentioned, we are the newest Twig. We were formed in December of 2021, not as this slide says 2022. Just caught that this moment. But we're been developed to facilitate a common industry understanding of zone storage use cases and host device architecture. There are 3 specifications in the industry for zoned storage devices, and there's a lot of differences in how those devices are developed, and our goal is to form use cases and a programming model and an architecture that will allow for a robust zone storage solution ecosystem, allowing more utilization of zone storage and for the ability to achieve the benefits of that zone storage. Our first meeting was actually this Monday. It was well attended and a lot of discussion as we started digging into what we'd be doing. Next slide, please. We have 2 major areas of work that we will be focusing on. One is a use case white paper. The other is an architecture and programming model. This model will be developed similar to how the persistent memory programming model was formed, for those of you who have been in SNIA for a long time, and also following some of the directions that the computational storage model, our architecture, has taken. So we will be following the formats that those predecessors have given us. We'll be collaborating with NVM Express on ZNS, on Insights T10 on ZBC, and Insights T13 on ZAC. So we are trying to coordinate with others in the industry. Next slide. Dave, did you want to talk about this storage model?
Sure, if you'd like. So this just gives you a visual, a very simplistic visual of what we're trying to do. Because the specifications for zone storage or the standards are out in the market already, but there is a great deal of variability of how hosts talk to zone storage devices and how zone storage devices are designed and what constraints they put. So we're trying to develop a model where we identify the use cases at the top end, and then on the bottom we're trying to identify in the device space what are common characteristics and things that zone storage devices export to hosts and in terms of how they operate. And then in the middle there'll be some in the middle layer, the ABC there'll be some variance per use case and perhaps per device class. So we're just trying to develop this taxonomy and structure so that we can get help the ecosystem move forward more effectively. Want to keep going,
We
Bill?
have-
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
We have 10 members at the moment. We were formed in December of last year, as noted earlier, with 4 members starting it off. Once we kicked it off, we have grown to 10 members. You will see a number of device vendors and also some solution and host type vendors in this list. So we are looking for both sides of this to make certain that we are appropriately looking at the industry. Next slide. So what's the expected industry impact of this work? We've already said we plan to develop use cases, and what we hope to do is to allow the industry to make a better utilization of zone storage devices. By making the utilization of zone storage devices improved, will increase the utilization of those devices and the performance benefits of those devices. And if you are a host vendor, a system vendor, we'd love you to join so that you can bring us how you would use the zone storage devices, so we can help educate you on how zone storage devices can be used and can benefit you. For device vendors, if you're producing zone storage devices, come join us if you're not already here to help us define an architectural model that will help to make zone storage devices more useful in the industry. And for additional information, you can contact Dave Landsman and Bill Martin. And when you get the PDF of the slides, that will be a hot link to zoned twig-shares@snia.org.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill and Dave, for the update. Hope we have overwhelmed you with the amount of work that's been done and is currently in flight in SNIA. In the same time, I hope that this will help you prioritize both your individual and your company's participation in this work in SNIA in the year ahead.